it. Do I just start? Yeah. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Today, I would like to invite you all to take a look into the wondrous world of toy photography. A form of photography that I find really interesting and exciting. You may ask why. Here's the reason. Please tell me it worked. It did. So I'm a nerd. I love pretty much any fantasy you can think of. But real quick, with a show of hands, how many people have a toy? All right, so take all, well, a lot of you, nice. So all of you take your number and then times it by 2, and that's how many toys I have. So being a nerd and having all these subjects, so to say, was the main reason I decided to start this project. But of course, when you embark on any journey, you have to have a few goals. So my goals were fairly simple. First off, I wanted to learn the camera. I'm not an expert when it comes to using a camera. I did use it a little bit in the past, but I didn't really understand it. So that was first off. Second, I wanted to find my style. Now, you may say toy photography is a style, but with painting, there's not just one way of doing it. There's multiple versions. If you go on YouTube or you search on the web, you'll find spectacular images, really compelling, really interesting. The third goal I have was to use this digital platform called Photoshop. And in case you don't know what it is, it's this really immersive platform where you can add all these cool effects to your photos. You'll actually get to see some a little later on. And the final goal that I have was just kind of have a collection of photos, Well, not the final goal. The actual final goal is this big question. And I try to answer it throughout this journey. The question was, what makes good toy photography? If you were to come up to me and ask, hey, what does it take to take a good photo? I'm not really sure I would answer. So this project was kind of its goal was to try to answer that question. And I put 3 steps, well, 4 steps, but here's the 3 first. And I think with all toy photographers, the main goal is to not only take a picture of your toy, but make him realistic, make him come to life, And here's 3 steps that I think kind of helps do that. First one is perspective. Now, perspective is huge because it really magnifies your subject, makes him come to life. If you're just taking it from the top down of your toy, it looks like you're just taking a picture of a toy. Well, it makes you look like you're taking a picture of a toy. But if you want to bring it to life, first thing is perspective. Second, posturing. Now, pretty much in any photo you look at, you don't see a guy just standing still and stiff, not even robots. So you want to add a little flavor to your subject, if you know what I mean. And how I would do this is because oftentimes when I would try to position my toy, he didn't look real. And I think it's because your eye can tell what movements look realistic or not. So I would use kind of myself as a reference, or I would go on the web and kind of just try to find an image. One of the hardest steps for me personally was to set the scene. Now, when you're trying to make a subject come to life, it's also important to make the world you're placing him in be active and be compelling and interesting, because you don't want to just have the subject. And what you do when you effectively set your scene is you can also kind of convey the story, or you can convey emotion or a purpose. And it was really my favorite aspect of this project. But I did have a problem because when I was trying to get eye-to-eye level, I had to lay flat on the ground sometimes. And when there's wind and lighting, you have to adjust your camera to match the lighting. And when it's wind, 3 figures of yours just fall down suddenly, and it's really, really annoying. And so my theory was just elevate my working space so that way I can sit down comfortably. Now, step 4 is a step that not everybody needs to take. It's sort of this digital platform, Photoshop. Let me show you an example. Take this image back here. It's pretty compelling. I mean, it has the first 3 steps down, but maybe we want to spice it up. So we add a lightsaber. Now, that's pretty cool, if I do say myself. It looks pretty realistic. But maybe we want some more elements in the foreground background. So we take some more stormtroopers. We duplicate them. Now we have a pretty interesting scene, sort of. And well, we're not done yet. We're all overachievers, so maybe we add some little blasters, some jetpack effects, deflecting going on, and we have a really compelling scene. And Photoshop it's so immersive that I could have done a whole project just entirely on Photoshop, just because you could change an image entirely. It's really just a fabulous, fabulous platform. I really, really enjoyed using it. I want to quickly mention that I didn't always use Photoshop. Sometimes I'd use practical effects like sparklers, or for this example, I used flour, kind of made this little explosion. And I find like my best work is when I use practical effects, not digital, and they're also a lot more fun to work with. Now, at the end of my project, I did find a new set of skills. I did learn the camera, so that was pretty exciting. I was getting a lot better with editing photos and adding special effects, but also something I did notice was in the beginning, I focused really hard on just action-packed scenes. You know, when people were like fighting, I would have my subjects fight all the time. But as I progressed, I kind of explored the spectrum of emotion. I would have some joyful pictures, some sad pictures, and I feel like at the end of this project, I'm kind of better when I'm trying to tell a story. And also, I learned the composition rules and techniques. What does this mean? It's basically like a set of guidelines that you have to follow when you're using a camera. Like, for example, take this picture. You have like 3 grid lines. You want your subject to be in the middle of those 3 grid lines. Unfortunately, this is not a great example because he's on the side. But that's part of the creativity process. You kind of want to break the rules when you can. I also did learn some skills. I mean, not learn some skills, use some skills, and like artistic perspective. Like my whole artistic mind was kind of developed over the course of my high school career. And when I immediately jumped into this process, I instinctively knew that I had to be eye-to-eye level with my figure, and I already started paying attention to my backgrounds and my foregrounds. And I have art class to thank for that. I also have to thank art class for using an artist statement. And this is basically where you take your work and you just kind of write a small paragraph reflecting on it. And it was, when you reflect on anything, it's very helpful because you can learn or discover what's working, but more importantly, what needs to be improved. And also I learned elements and principles. I also used elements and principles of design. And that's kind of like this general composition that kind of makes your work look more pleasing to the audience. You think about contrast, form, texture, the whole shebang. Now, I would like to end this project with a few thank yous. I want to thank, first of all, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Ogilvy, Ms. Metzger, my mom, rest of my family, Kelsey Brittany, Noah Fowler, Ms. Levitt, Ms. Peterson, the booth, because they've been lighting not only my presentation, but all the presentations that you may not seen. And also, I would like to thank the entire FHS community. I mean, you guys are all super, super awesome. And I'm being honest when I say Freeport High School is the best school in the country. It's the truth. And I would like to end it with any questions, possibly? Oh, sorry. Yes, Ms. Peterson?
How many photos were you able to bring to the final stages?
I think I got like 20 photos, but I have like 25, but the other 5 are like, I didn't really like the outcome, because some days you'll take a photo, but you don't really like what the outcome is. So yeah, I have 25 photos. Oh, actually, if you want to see the photos that I do like, I have an Instagram account. It's right there, Toys in Action, official. And I have all the pictures that I wasn't able to put on the presentation. Yes, ma'am?
Is there anything that you did during this project, a process that you wanted to be using in your career?
I'm terribly sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Is there anything that you learned or did during this project, during the process, that you will be using in the future?
Okay, so the question was there anything that I learned or did in this project that I will be using in the future? Yeah, totally. I think the first thing was practical effects. As I mentioned before, I don't use Photoshop all the time. I like to actually use real props. But I didn't do it as much as I really wanted to. I kind of did it towards the end of my project. But I found that it looks much more realistic when you use real effects to your photos. So yeah, that's the first thing I'm definitely going to do more in the future. Yes, I can't really see you because I don't have my glasses. Oh, question in the front. Yes?
How did you make them like in the air? Was that like a just drop and then somebody took the picture in time, or like?
Okay, so the question was, how did I create this image in the background? How did I make the guys floating? I think if you guys do want to try this out, I recommend getting both Photoshop and like just your phone, if you want to, turned off for some reason. And the reason for that is because I found my best work happened when I would incorporate both real effects and digital ones. So the Darth Vader one in the background, I took like these wires to elevate the guys off the ground. And then on Photoshop, I just removed it. So it was like fairly simple, fairly easy, but the outcome was pretty cool. Yes, Ms. Levitt?
How long does one photo take from start to finish, like setting the stage and taking the photo and editing?
So the question was, how long does it take for one photo to complete or to finish? That really depends. There was this one day where I had like close to 200 photos for one image that I was trying to take, and it was I was trying to use a real practical effect. It was actually the Halo one that you just a little while back. Maybe I can actually show that. If I backtrack, and the reason why it took so long was, well, I was just trying to capture that image that I really wanted, and so it varies. There's not really one answer, but generally speaking, it would take an hour to shoot the photo and maybe in half an hour to an hour to edit it.
So I'm doing my project on a line through Maine, which is a deep dive into the CMP corridor. My project goals were to create an unbiased platform to learn. I wanted to interview people for various opinions. I wanted to travel the route of the corridor, and I wanted to write an article for the Bangor Daily News. So what is the CMP corridor? The basics of it are an agreement between Massachusetts and Hydro-Quebec. It stems from the 2016 Northern Pass, which was an agreement that Massachusetts signed that by 2022, they need 10 terawatts of carbon-free power. For reference, that's about 700,000 Maine homes energy worth. They turned to Canada after looking past 46 clean energy proposals within their own state. This is very similar to the 2050 Pact, which is a New England agreement to reduce 80% of greenhouse gases. So overall, this pact would help New England. One of the biggest issues, though, is that CMP only owns 2/3 of the area they want to bring the corridor through. So the 53 miles that's being reviewed and going to be voted on is from the Canadian border to the Forks. So some major pros of the corridor is that it's going to bring economic benefits for all of Maine. It's going to bring things like technology and internet up north, which is going to allow economic growth, year-round jobs, and further community connections. It's also going to be a 20-year contract, which is going to allow 16,000 jobs, and 80% of that is going to be Mainers. So some of the major cons is that this project is unlikely to reduce carbon emissions. It's also going to go through some of the country's last native brook trout habitats and fragile wastelands and deer yards. So one of the biggest process parts was my Instagram. I built an Instagram and I got around 28 followers by the end of it. I had 7 Instagram posts, 12 Instagram stories, and I was just able to share a bunch of the stuff I found. One segment I did on my stories was up in the corner. I posted a bunch of signs I found up north, and I got a portion, this sign specifically says, "No Maine for Spain," which is talking about how there's another company that owns CMP and the New England Clean Energy Connect, who has major influences by a Spanish company, and both of their logos are down at the bottom, and you can tell how similar they are. So another part of the process was the interviews. I interviewed Bill Bryant, who was a CMP contractor. He is pro-corridor. He was really useful for some basic information and just recent stuff. He also really wanted to stress that the corridor is only 53 feet across, which is about this one side of the highway. Russell Walters I also interviewed. He's a lodge president in the Forks and has connections to conservation groups. He was really helpful because he gave me a perspective up north. He wanted to stress that Maine is going to get benefits from this. We're going to get things like cost savings, widespread internet, college grant funding, and money overall. James Norton, my grandfather, is a retired CMP worker, and he worked 30 years in the hydro division. He's pro-corridor. This was probably my easiest interview because it was my grandfather. And he also wanted to talk about how efficient, and it's changed since he's been there. He's been retired for 22 years, so it's changed a lot, and he thinks it's a good help for Maine. Another process was traveling. I started my drive at 6 a.m. in the morning and got home at 6 p.m. It was a long 12-hour drive. I traveled from Freeport, Maine, all the way to the Canadian border and back. My little route is down there. My biggest issue I had was the GPS. I got turned around and got on some private roads because anyone who goes up there knows there's a lot of dirt roads, and some of them are actual roads and some of them are private. And unfortunately, I got turned around for 3 hours, so that was definitely a struggle. I also took a lot of photos while on the road, and I got about 24 that were like usable by the end of this that I could post on Instagram. And I wanted to focus mostly on the Canadian border to the Forks, which is the 53 miles being tested. Another part was the article I wrote. I wrote an article to the Bangor Daily News. I wrote an op-ed, which is basically an opinionated article. And my biggest struggle with this was writing the word limit. I started out wanting to write a letter, which was about 250 words, which anyone who's written that knows it's not a lot to say a lot. So I changed it over and wrote the opinionated article, which allowed me 650 words. This process took a lot of editing and just overall revisions. So some of the challenges I face was the hours. I definitely struggled going from about 2 hours at school to now having to do 6 hours a day on this project. I also struggled with traveling and the GPS, as you know. I had some issues with technology. My camera gave me a lot of blurry photos at first, and I had to deal with that and kind of fix that. I also had some issues with COVID. I started the project in quarantine, which is not the best start, and I had to revise what I was going to do and change things around. And it also made it hard to get interviews. People are hard to talk to with a mask, and not a lot of people wanted to talk to me. Some successes. I got new followers. That was exciting. I didn't get a lot of followers, but I got some followers, which was exciting. I took some beautiful pictures, which have been all over the slide. All of these were either photos from my Instagram or photos I took while I was traveling. I also wrote the article, which will hopefully get posted in the Bangor Daily News. But if it doesn't, I really liked it. So I also learned a lot from this project. I now am confident to tell people about this project and the things I've learned. I also got a lot of people excited, people coming up to me and hearing about this project and just wanting to come and see it or wanting to learn about it. And I also got no hate, which I was happy about. I turned off all comments on the Instagram, but I was expecting some angry DMs, and I didn't get any. I also was able to be professional both over email and over the phone. Especially during my interviews, this was helpful. I was talking to a lot of adults in their adult lives, and they were able to respect me. I also did things with writing and grammar. Both my captions on Instagram and my overall article I wrote, those were helpful for. Also being able to prioritize things like what can I do next week, what can I do this week, what has to be done now, which I definitely worked on through school. Some photography classes I took through FHS definitely helped. And then being able to build relationships with my teachers over the past 4 years definitely helped because a lot of them reached out and gave me information. Skills gained from the project. I got confidence while taking photos. I was turning around on the road and just pulling off to the side of the road has always been difficult for me because you see so many pretty things, but like a lot of people are driving by. So I was able to do a lot of that, which was helpful. Accepting rejection was a big part of this. Dealing with people not wanting to talk to me or not answering my emails was a big part. Also, my time management, being able to spend my time wisely on what was useful and what was not. I definitely improved by the end, but had some issues with that. Learning how to write the opinionated article. I had a lot of help from Mr. B while doing that, but that was a new process I learned. Also, learning how to use Instagram in a different way. Most of us use it to post our daily posts or like whenever you post, but using it in an informational way was something I've never done. So my biggest takeaways from this project was the senior project allowed me to learn so much. I was able to spend this month working on something I cared about instead of spending time in class. And I got to learn about this corridor, which means a lot to me. I spend a lot of time up north, and this was something I really care about. Also, I want everyone to know you can make a difference. Over this month, I hopefully reached at least 28 people, and that's pretty good. My thank yous are to Ms. Peterson, Ms. Levitt, and FHS as a whole for letting me do this project. I want to thank Mr. Anderson for being my project advisor. I want to thank Mr. Abitamarco and Mr. Dierberg for both helping me get interviews and just get information in general. Mr. Beahold for helping so much with the writing process. anyone who followed or looked at the account, the people I interviewed, and my family. Questions? Ms. Peterson.
I have a two-part question.
Okay.
So the first part is, did you go in with like an opinion on this? And you don't have to tell us what it was, but did you go in with an opinion? And then the second part is, once you got up to that extreme northern part of the route, did it change your mind at all?
So honestly, I've been against this corridor from the beginning. My family is super opinionated, so I've learned a lot through this. Oh, I didn't repeat the question. I'm sorry.
No, and the second part was, did anything shift in how you viewed this topic once you got up there?
Yeah. Did anything shift or change while I got up north? Honestly, not really. It was really difficult finding any signs saying pro corridor because most of the corridor is, like, industry people are for the corridor. Most homeowners and the daily people you see in Maine are against it. So I saw a lot of signs saying against the corridor. So it was basically the same. Ms. Levitt.
This is more of a comment than a question, but one thing I've been really impressed about from the beginning is how you wanted to really show both sides. Like, even watching your presentation, I couldn't tell if you were for or against this. I actually thought you were for it, but now you're saying your opinion. And I thought it was really great how you chose to interview people who were for it when you were against it. I just think that shows a real commitment to understanding the fact that you were willing to look at both sides.
Yeah, I really wanted to keep it open to everyone. I wanted everyone to be able to form their own opinions based on what they learned from me. And because I got that opportunity in the past 4 years to learn what I wanted, form my own opinion, I want everyone else to have that opportunity. Ms. Galko.
No, I think it's just an awesome project that you took this on. You know, did you find that? Are you surprised by how many people don't really know the ins and outs of this, and we're about to vote next week?
She was asking if I was surprised by how many people didn't know about this corridor, and honestly, I was so surprised. That was kind of part of the reason I wanted to do this presentation and project was I think it's going to be a big decision for Maine, even if it's for or against whatever we decide. It's going to be a huge change for Maine, and I want to make sure we're making that informed decision instead of just making it blindly with whatever's, just checking whichever one you want. Ms. Bunnell?
I don't know if you can go back to the slide, but sometimes when we have these questions on the ballot, they're really confusing about how yes really means no and no means yes, and I know that's really difficult for people, so I was just wondering, like, there is a vote yes to reject this certificate. So when you were talking with people, did that ever come up about how sometimes it can be confusing and almost feels like a way to manipulate? I don't know.
She was asking if the way the ballots are set up are confusing. I know my mom struggles a lot with them. She comes home super angry not angry, but frustrated with the fact that she has to yes to reject, why not no to so I think they definitely use it as a tool to try and confuse people. That's why I made this out of an image I did, and I wanted to make sure I posted that as one of my final posts on Instagram to make sure people knew how to vote and knew what they were voting for. I think that's it.
feel. Do what you want. Everybody, everybody, somebody. Everybody, everybody, somebody. Whoa. Like you want, do what you want. Hey, yo, the Lord say, baby, whoa.
Hi, my name is Hannah Moore,
And I'm June DeShano,
and today we're going to be talking about a project, Little Lending Libraries.
a community outreach project. So to start off, we wanted to tell you a little bit about our project. We decided to do Little Lending Libraries because it would be a good community give back, as well as it would be good for all ages. So we wanted to put books inside that would be range from children's books to adult books as well. This would be an interactive community give back because people can take a book and leave the book free of charge. This project is not only interactive for people in the community, but also for us because we were able to learn building skills as we went along. Also, it was creative because we were able to paint and decorate these lending libraries like the places that they ended up going.
So some of the major goals of our project were to create 2 weatherproof lending libraries for our community. So that would mean we needed to use exterior wood and exterior paint so that it would hold up to Maine's weather conditions. We also had the goal to use mostly donated and recycled materials for our project to just help out with using recycled materials and also stick to our $100 budget. So we did this by borrowing wood from June's uncle, who's a carpenter, and we got books from the Yarmouth Recycling Center.
So our skills used at Freeport High School during this project was our English and specifically AP language skills for writing emails to different places in the community, public speaking for being able to reach out and setting up in-person meetings with these people, our videography skills for creating the video that we'll show later in the presentation, and our pre-calc geometry and quantitative reasoning skills for measuring and being able to cut the wood to its exact dimensions.
So to start off our project, we had to reach out to the community, and this was even before our project started. So before our project started, about a week before, I had to call several places in the community, and it turned out being around 10 places that we called. A lot of them receiving voicemail, and so I had to leave a voicemail explaining our project. With that, we didn't get much response, and I think because a lot of the places we called were out of season and not open. So that was one of the first challenges that we ran into. And then later on, a couple weeks later, Hannah was able to call Freeport Community Center and talk to Liza Moore, who's the executive director there. And she was very ecstatic to hear about our project, and she was super excited to see what we would build. And then next week, Hannah called Wolf's Neck Oceanfront Campground, and there she talked to Rebecca Chapman, who's a manager there. And they were already super excited about our project because they had already planned on building a lending library. So when we called, it was super coincidental, and it was an awesome experience for us.
So during the first week of our project, we met with Liza Moore, executive director at Freeport Community Center, and it was important for us to meet with them ahead of time to make sure we knew where we were going to end up putting these libraries and how big they should be, and also we wanted it to look as much as they wanted it to be. So we talked to her about trying to replicate one of the offices at the community center, and then at the Wolf's Neck Campground, we had talked to Rachel Chapman, and she had talked about just kind of being creative with it, maybe like drawing designs on it, just something that would kind of match the vibe of the campground.
So next we wanted to talk about our building process, which was the most important part of our whole project. There's a lot of different steps that we needed to take, and we'll show you step by step what we did. So first was planning. So there's a lot of planning that went into this project because there's so many different designs for lending libraries that you see online, and we had to make sure they fit the location that they were going to. So the different designs that we saw, we ended up pulling one, and you can see it right up there on the right. And we did this because the places that we were going to put them, Community Center and Oceanfront Campground, they both didn't have any places that we could mount them, like on trees, or there wasn't really opportunity to put concrete in the ground to actually hold them up. So we had to figure out a different way to do that. So we decided on a post and a stand that could stand freely on any ground, and that was helpful because we didn't need to dig into a property or ruin any of the trees that they had. So the next step was to find the dimensions. And so my dad was a really big help in this because we didn't really know what dimensions we wanted to start with. So we decided on a square base, which would be the floor, and then a square structure around, and that was 18 by 18. And then up to the peak was 24 inches. So we decided to build them on a post, and we also wanted them to be weatherproof. So we chose weatherproof wood, which we got from my uncle who donated us wood. And then also we were able to do exterior paint, which helped us a lot too. So next was materials and costs. So we were graciously giving a $100 budget by Molly Chen, which was really helpful because wood is so expensive right now. And if we didn't have the donated wood, this project would be around $400 to complete. And so it was really helpful to get that wood that we needed. So donated wood was $0, but we did have to buy extra wood for the post and the stand, which ended up being $39.76. Nails, screws, hinges, and hardware, all the little stuff was one of our biggest expense, $43.75. And then exterior paint was around $35, and plexiglass we got an extremely good deal on for both of them. It ended up being $5.70. And then as you can see in the picture, that is the Yarmouth Recycling Center. And they have a place where you can take books, as many as you want. So our books were $0 as well. So before we show you our video of kind of the process of our building, we just wanted to touch upon these few points of the building process. So first, when we measured our wood, we had to make sure it was square, so we used a tool that looked almost like an L, and that would help us so we wouldn't have any gaps when we went to put them together. Then we would tack them together with a brad gun, which is a nail gun. And this was important because we could build the structure, and then once they were tacked together, we could go in with screws for bracing. Next, we built the door and laid the plexiglass inside the door. After that, we added hinges and hardware. And then we sealed the holes before painting. And then when we painted, we did the one that was going at the community center yellow and the one that was going at Wolf's Neck Oceanfront Campground white, and it had a black roof. And then I was able to go in with acrylic paint and paint the flowers on the side of the one going at the Oceanfront Campground.
So next we're going to show you guys a video of the building process and every step along the way.
So originally we had music on this, but we can kind of just talk through it. So basically this is the starting off with the nail gun. And you can see the power tools that both of us weren't used to using yet. And then that shows our painting process. And then that was what it looked like at Wolf's Neck. And then this was what it ended up looking like at the community center.
So the outcome of our project, both locations were super happy with how these turned out and that they matched both vibes of each place. And we were also super proud of how the paint job turned out. It ended up making them look way more professional than we thought they would in the beginning. Before the project started, we had looked at examples of videos of people building them online, and we wanted to replicate that as much as we possibly could and make them look as most professional as we could get them.
Yeah, we also had seen some in the community, and we wanted to kind of take that and reflect on it and build them in our own way, and so that was also important too. So challenges and takeaways, some of our challenges were getting responses from potential properties. This was hard in the beginning because we needed that to start our project. Deciding how to mount the lending libraries, which is something we talked about earlier. Yarmouth Recycling Center being closed on the days that we went, they had weird hours, and at first it was hard for us and it took up a lot of time. And then building skills were some of our takeaways. We learned a lot from the building process, and it's something I think I'll take into the future. Budgeting skills to stay under that $100 budget that we had, and some safety skills for using goggles and making sure we put gloves on before we move and process wood. So here are some of our thank yous. We wanted to say thank you to Tom and Heidi DeShana, which are both my parents. My dad let us use his garage the whole time we were building our project. He also showed us everything that we needed to know about building, and it was super helpful in us building both of them. And then my mom as well, because she was able to purchase the materials for us, and then we were able to reimburse her with the $100 grant. Jody and Jason Corey, my aunt and uncle. My uncle's a carpenter, and he collected wood for weeks prior to our project that they were going to throw away at the end of the day, so it was good to recycle that.
And we'd also like to thank Liza Moore and Rachel Chapman for letting us do our project on their property and for staying in touch with us during this whole project.
And then we wanted to thank Freeport High School for the opportunity to do a senior project.
And Ms. Q for being our project advisor and also being my advisor for the past few years. Ms. Peterson and Ms. Levitt for giving us this opportunity to do a senior project.
And Molly Chen for graciously donating $100 towards our project. It helped us a lot, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without it.
Any questions?
Ms. Peterson.
Do your libraries have like a little plaque on them that say that you made them?
We actually had talked about that and doing that, but they don't, unfortunately. But we were going to sign the inside, but we just decided to place them at the properties and let people enjoy them.
Ms. Levitt?
Do you feel like you acquired enough building skills from this project to maybe create something else after?
So the question was, do we think we acquired enough building skills to do something after with it? And I think, yeah. I probably need to refresh on some of the, using the power tools and stuff, but I think this project definitely helped me, where if I had to do a project by myself, I could probably figure it out.
Ms. Q.
So what did you find to be the best part of the project? What was the most fun?
So the question was, what do you find to be the best part of the project, or what was the most fun? I think for me, it was painting, because I really enjoy art, and painting the flowers on the side of the one that we did was really enjoyable. What about you?
Yeah, painting was definitely one of the best parts of the project, and also just getting to drive around and meet both Liza and Rachel. That was a good part of the project too. Any other questions?